Hey church family, Pastor Andrew here. I want to speak a word of encouragement to you about being present where your feet are. The podcast I was listening to recently, the Dream Big podcast by Bob Goff and friends, and he was having a conversation with a guy by the name of Tim Timmons. And Mr. Timmons is based out of Tennessee, and he was talking about the significance of just being where your feet are, to be present. So for example, recently I've been in a couple scenarios when I've been able to serve other people, and sometimes what I can tend to do is get so focused on getting the job done, or I want to make sure they have what they need, or making sure that their needs are met, that I'm actually somehow losing sight, losing the heart of what we're about. I'm not just loving the person, but I'm getting the job done. And while that's a good thing, we want to do that and do that well, do that with excellence. There's also a need for, am I doing that with the presence of Jesus? Am I loving this person well? I was also recently, my daughter's first birthday was just a couple weeks ago, and we had a birthday party for her out in our barn out back, and we had a bunch of family over and just had a great time celebrating her. But in the midst of that, my wife and I just kept going back and forth between the house and the barn, making sure the food was taken care of, making sure drinks were cold, making sure all those different pieces were addressed. And as we're in the midst of that, we're kind of missing the point here. We're not spending time with these people that we invited to our house. We're taking care of maybe their needs, but we're not actually meeting with these people. And so the significance of being present there, of loving those people well, takes precedent, I would suggest, over making sure that every single thing was done to a T with excellence and sharpness if we lose sight of loving people. A phrase that came out of that podcast, the Tim Timmons, what he was talking about, the phrase that he uses is, Jesus, you have my attention. So whether he's walking into a situation or scenario, or maybe you're in the midst of something going on, and can we just pause for a moment and put our focus on the Creator and say, Jesus, you have my attention. Whatever comes next, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but Jesus, in this place, right here, right now, you have my attention. And maybe that can even be some spiritual breathing, right? You breathe Jesus in. Jesus, you have my attention. Jesus, you have my attention. And when we do that, it has the power, the possibility of changing the trajectory of your day, of your week, of your life, of your circumstances. Not that it's just suddenly done, but if we just have Jesus in that space, something's going to come out of that. It's kind of like if you are practicing trust or practicing worry, whichever one we're leaning towards or being intentional to pursue, we're going to get good at what we practice. And so do I want to get better at trust? Or do I want to continue in this grain, in this space of worry and fear and frustration that can lead us down a path? And even if we have some good things that come out of it, is it possible that this other grain over here of trust can lead us to even bigger and better and bolder things, not for our success or our glory, or is it about me or even my experience, but it's about this Jesus, God-man guy that we want to make known to the world. I'll tell you, in 1 Timothy, 1 and 2 Timothy, as well as the book of Titus, those are known as pastoral epistles. So maybe some pastoral guidance or words of wisdom written in letters to these guys, Timothy and Titus. And these were guys that Paul raised up, people that Paul had spent a lot of intimate time with, training and teaching and just living life, doing ministry on the job, on the road, making Jesus known. And that as they went along, they were planting churches. And after some time away, they would circle back to check in with the people there. And as they're on the road, they hear word that in Ephesus, there's some false teaching maybe cropping up and some other issues that are causing the church to become viewed as disrepute or not trustworthy in the community. And a word I want to speak into this space as we look at that context for this passage is coming out of 1 Timothy 4, verse 16. And that says, watch your life and doctrine closely. Persevere in them, because if you do, you will save both yourself and your hearers. And with this passage in mind, I want us to know the significance of watching our life and watching our doctrine and knowing those things that are important, knowing what is true that we are told out of the scriptures, out of divine encounter, out of that space that we are intimately in relationship with Jesus, that it's founded on that it's founded on that relationship. It's founded on God's love for us, that He did these things. That not that we suddenly discovered Him and oh my gosh, we're just so drawn to Him and it's all because of us, but that He is drawing us to Him. In 2 Corinthians 12:9, the context here is that Paul is talking about this thorn in his flesh, in his side. That if only you would remove this sin that is in my life, God, if you could free me from this burden, God, how much glory would you receive, and wouldn't it be better so that we can make your name known in broader and better places more intimately with you, Lord. And so in 2 Corinthians 12:9 it says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me." And what I want to express coming out of that passage is that there's more in you than you know. There's more in you than you know. Jesus has put more into you than you realize. Just let it out. It doesn't mean just spew whatever comes to mind. No, it's Spirit-led. Jesus put it in me. No. But there is so much more Jesus in you as you've had time with Him, whether you've been a follower of Jesus for a long time or not. Whatever those experiences you've been, whatever those interactions you've been, when you've come to God or when you haven't, what you've learned, what you've been brought to now. There is more in you than you know. And so take that to mean that you can go to these places that are hard to reach. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's a circumstance that has had a lot of pain or struggle in it. And that we can go to these places and not just solve things, but we have more in us to address it than maybe we give ourselves credit for, because of the redeeming work that God has done in us. That He has done healing in those places, and there's still more to be done, but there's more in you than you know. So I encourage you to let that out. There are 10,080 minutes in a week. You can look it up if you want. I already did just to double check it, but there's 10,080 minutes in 7 days. And let's just say you spend 80 of those in church, in a church setting, in some sort of environment on a Sunday morning, maybe Saturday night, whenever it is, Wednesday night. But 80 minutes you spend in a church setting. So you've got another 10,000 minutes to use, to make use of, to maximize. And we can go to those places and do the math to figure out, okay, if I spend this, and this amount of time on meals, on sleeping, on whatever the math is, and maybe we can get too legalistic with some of those pieces. But just that concept, okay, what am I going to do with those 10,000? But what if it was just a little bit different, is as I'm present in where I'm at now, can I join Jesus in what He is doing in those other 10,000? Instead of, here's where I've got space for Jesus, maybe it's, okay, Jesus, the space that I have is 10,000 minutes. How can I join you in that? And maybe it looks completely different than what you've done or are doing. Maybe it looks very similar, but just with a few adjustments. But we're on this trajectory towards Jesus. We're on this trajectory towards a life that is honoring to Him, that brings Him glory, that makes Him known. And we get to do that by being present where we're at, where our feet are. And we say, Jesus, you have my attention. What would you have me do in this space? God, I'm going to trust you in this space. I may not know the outcome, but I'm going to trust you in this space. And because I know that our foundation is in you, that your love for us allows us to then love others, that we can have that life and that doctrine to be able to profess, and that there's more in us than we know, that even in our weakness, God, you have power in that space. There's more that you've put in us, and Jesus, I want you to help me let that out. Jesus, I want you to help me make you known to other people through my word, through my action, through my deed, through whatever avenues that might be. Jesus, I want to join you in this thing we call life. So Jesus, you have my attention. We love you, church family. We'll see you soon.